haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. It goes a long way toward the success of the channel. In this video, we're going to talk about a very, very important topic. The topic is workplace harassment. I think everybody understands what harassment is, but let me just go through it very quickly. Harassment is any unwanted advances, any activity that a person might find offensive. So that could be rude jokes, it could be touching them in the wrong way, it could be certain type of slang, it could be talking about their religion, it could be talking about their sexual orientation, it could be anything like that or that a person finds very offensive. Let's go a little bit deeper. Any unwanted behavior. So that pretty much covers a whole gamut of things, but I think everybody knows what unwanted behavior is. So if you don't know, when someone says no, someone cringes, or someone doesn't smile, someone walks away and goes, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. You need to take an assessment of what you just said and make sure that if you said something that you thought was okay, but it turns out to be offensive, look at body language, look at how a person responds to that. And you might need to apologize or say, I'm sorry, look, I didn't mean to be offensive. Just try to close it out real quick. Second thing that you need to talk about when you talk about unwanted behavior, it doesn't need to be severe. It can be subtle. It can be, small things over and over again that someone finds offensive. So it could be as little as I walk up to someone and I touch their shoulder, or I touch them on a daily basis, and they kind of move away a little bit because they don't want to be touched, and you continually touching their legs, touching their head, touching their shoulder, that could be harassment to someone, especially if they send you signals saying stop that, and then they tell you to not do that any longer, and you continue to do that same behavior, it's considered harassment. If you ask somebody out for lunch and they don't want to go, they just don't want to go for whatever reasons, maybe they've seen someone else or whatever, they don't like you because you have a red hat on, I don't know. But don't keep asking. Take no as an answer, because harassment comes in many forms, shapes, and colors. So also anything that changes your working environment. So if you don't want to sit beside somebody at the table because you just used to, your stomach boils. So anytime you have to change your working environment, meaning I come to work just a little bit late now, I come to work right on time. I used to come to work half an hour early, but I don't want to run across such and such in the coffee room. I don't want to see them at the gym. I don't want to see them, in the conference room. I want to spend the minimum amount of time if I can with them. That's harassment. Anytime you need to change your behavior, it's considered harassment. So if you need to change your seating, if you need to change your desk, you need to come in earlier, you need to leave late because you don't want to be around a person, that's harassment. So you really, really need to take action to make sure that's squared away. Now I think you understand a little bit about what harassment is. Let's talk about some of the things you should do if you find yourself in a situation where you're being harassed. So the number one thing is you need to put it in writing. You need to start in the journal, on your computer. You need to start writing down facts. What was said? When was it said? What context was it in? Who was around? What time? All these things you need to write down, because in the future days, if this thing really blows up and goes forward, you're gonna need to have some clear documents, some key documentation in your hand ready to go, where you can pull out and say to someone, this is what happened, these are the dates and times. The second thing you need to do is go talk to that person. Tell that person, hey, what you did yesterday or what you've been doing the last couple of days is not appropriate. You find it offensive. Or if you don't want to use that word you find offensive, just tell them you don't want them to do that any longer, right? Make sure that's clearly understood. Set some boundaries. Hey, I don't want you touching me. I don't want you calling me. I don't want to be in the coffee room with you by myself. I just don't want to do it. Set some boundaries, That could be difficult, especially if it's your boss, but you gotta take action. You gotta lay that out clearly. Nip it in the bud, like my friend Bonnie Fife used to say from Andy Griffith Show. Love that show, by the way. You have to nip it in the bud. Nip it immediately. Do not let these things fester, because the longer it goes, it kind of sends a signal to that person that it's okay. This person doesn't find this offensive. So you need to really stop it. Stop it as quick as possible. If that person doesn't get the hint and they don't stop, then you need to formally go to HR for complaint. You need to go to the ombudsman. You need to go to your manager. You need to put it in writing. You need to write it down and make sure everybody's aware of what's happening. And make sure management is aware of what's happening. Let them intervene on your behalf. You tried unsuccessfully to manage yourself. You've been documenting everything. So when you go to HR or you go to your manager, you have some key dates, key times, what was said, who was around, etc., etc. You got to make sure you get all your ducks in a row, because a person might say the opposite thing and say, no, it's not me, it was you, and try to spin this thing on you. So you need to make sure you have all your ducks in a row. Once you go to HR, it's up to them. It's down to managerial task. Now they have to do something. Now they should investigate. Now they should take action on your behalf to try to figure out what's happening. And if it's some type of harassment is really going on, they should figure out a way to stop it quickly, whether it's having some counseling with another person, having some training, and also if it needs to happen, some disciplinary action, depending on how severe it is. Something needs to happen to make sure it doesn't continue. Key thing is, once you notify your employer, now they have to do something about it. If they don't do anything about it and you end up quitting your job because it's just too much stress and you go out and get a lawsuit against the company, you have some documentation saying, hey, I told them on this date, I still couldn't take it any longer, I had to quit my job because I was just under so much stress. You need to have your ducks in a row or you might get fired. I mean, you just blow up and you have a fit one day. And anyway, look, get your documentation together. That's the key thing. Record everything. Write it all down, because you never know when you might need it. The other thing is probably more critical than anything else that I'm talking about is do not be afraid. Let me repeat that. Do not be afraid to speak up. You have to speak up. If you don't say anything, it kind of like tells that person it's okay. We talked about this. But you have to go to management, have to go to that person. You have to talk to somebody else on the job to make them understand, because now you have a witness. Now if you go to your friend and you say, hey, look, this is happening, and maybe they'll give you some more support, some leverage to go talk to someone to make sure this is squared away. But you have to, please, you have to tell someone about the harassment. Now I'm gonna flip it around. As an employer, there's some key things you need to do to keep harassment out of your workplace. Key thing, because you don't want to get sued. You don't want anyone quitting your job, going to get a lawyer and going to try to sue the company because of harassment. You need to have your ducks in a row also to make sure the working environment is free and clear of this type of activity. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you have an established policy. Make sure you have a policy in place that addresses harassment in the workplace. Make sure this policy is well written. Make sure it's thought out, and make sure that all employees have access to it, whether it's on the server, on your website, or it's hard copies. Make sure it's around. Put one in the coffee room, put it on the bulletin board. Just make sure everybody knows about the harassment policy. Number two, make sure there's annual training. Make sure at a minimum every year everybody reads that harassment policy, make sure everybody understands it, and make sure they sign off. Hey, I understand, I know what harassment is, I've had the training, I do it every year, and every year you need to refresh it, bring it back up, make sure you incorporate any of the latest things, that laws that are applicable. Make sure that your customers, and make sure that your clients and other people that might come into that workplace, come into that environment, make sure they clearly understand if you have an harassment policy also, because sometimes harassment comes from outside, not necessarily always from internal staff. And number three, encourage communication. Encourage open communication. Tell your team, tell your staff, tell your employees to talk about harassment. Don't make it taboo. If something comes up, make sure you have that open door policy where they're welcome to come in and talk about being harassed. Obviously, it's not a great subject to talk about, but you have to. If you don't set the stage, you don't set the environment, no one's ever going to come. You have to keep it open, welcoming, and say, hey, look, if you got a problem, you got an issue, you might not have to talk to me. Talk to somebody else, talk to that person over there, talk to that person over there, but make sure it's addressed. Number four, when somebody comes and reports something, make sure you take action immediately. Do not rest on it. Do not take 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Start your investigation. Pull all the people in. If you need to get a third party to do the investigation, bring somebody in from another site, from another region. But make sure it's done immediately, that you get somebody to come in and take a look at it. What does it do? It tells that person if you're taking it seriously, tell that person you're taking action, and it's just not just going to be swept under the carpet. Make sure you keep it fair. Do not make judgment. Do not decide who's at issue or who's at fault before you even ask one question. You might not like this person, and you might think this person's a troublemaker, but you just can't automatically jump to a conclusion. Do a fair analysis of what happened. Number 5, make sure there's a support system. So if there is some harassment, make sure that person has access to counseling, or make sure that person has some access to maybe some time off or some support help. But just make sure that you take initiative to understand, make that person understand that you support that person, and that the activities that they're undergoing is not part of the work culture. It's not part of something that you believe in or that you will accept. And the last one is lead by example. If you're the leader of the company, if you're one of the employees that are in the leadership team, make sure you lead by example. That's critical, because if the boss is out doing all kinds of crazy things, using bad language, saying bad jokes, putting your hand on people inappropriately, and taking people in, on business trips and taking them out to dinner where people are feeling that they aren't comfortable, you can't put your employees in that position, because it's even harder for them to go out and report you because you're their supervisor. Make sure you practice what you preach. Make sure you don't go out and send the wrong message by your behavior, by not following your own policy. So make sure you follow it. In this video, I'm going to give you some key things for an employee and for an employee to do when it comes down to harassment. So make sure the key thing is you speak up immediately about it when you feel like you're being harassed. Don't let it sit. Number 2, go to your managers, go to HR, report it. Immediately report it. Number 3, make sure you have all your documents in row. Use facts. Use facts. Always facts, okay? You want to make sure you have all your facts in a row, and not emotion, but facts. When, where, how. Make sure you list everything down. If you like this content, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button. About 80% of the people that watch my videos haven't subscribed yet, so I would welcome you to subscribe. Another thing is, please give me some feedback. Write some comments. Please give me some ideas and thoughts about the next video. I would welcome your feedback. Also go to my website and book a 1-hour free counseling session. We can talk about pretty much any subject, harassment, or how to get the next job, or how to get promoted, any other scenarios that are happening in your workplace. You might need a third party to take a look at, just to give you some coaching, see how you can get around and you can migrate through a certain issue. I will welcome that. If you like the content, again, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. It goes a long way to supporting the channel. I really, really appreciate it. I love putting together these videos. I love talking to you. I love reading your comments, by the way. So keep them coming. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.